Multilingual Redditors, what is your they didn't realize I spoke their language story? Was on both ends as a deaf person myself. On one side, this one time the cashiers at a store realized I was deaf, and so started talking to each other about me when they thought I wasn't looking. They also didn't know I had my hearing aids and could lip read. Their comments weren't anything too negative. It was mostly the typical comments about deaf people by people who were completely clueless about how deafness worked. When I brought my stuff to the checkout, I kindly reminded them that it's a pretty bad idea to talk about somebody thinking that they can't understand what you're talking about, because the chances are that they do in fact understand what you're talking about. The look on their faces were completely classic. On the other side, one time my best friend and I were people watching at the mall, and we randomly started rating the men around us. In sign language, of course. There was this one dude sitting near us and we started rating his looks and his body. I said that he looked like he had a nice butt, and that his eyes were really beautiful, with the color of the deep ocean. So I rated him a 10/10. Then he came over to us, and then told us in sign language, "Thanks for the compliments, ladies, you really made my day, haha." We were both so shocked and embarrassed. That just made me realize that deaf people can't really quietly communicate things. That's probably a bad way to put it, but I just found it interesting. I sort of have the reverse of this. I am a white man from the UK, and whilst visiting Berlin was sat on the S-Bahn facing a older, also white, lady. On the other side of the carriage there were 4 gentlemen who were clearly Eastern European, Middle Eastern. I think they were speaking Turkish, but I'm not sure. The lady turns to me and says in German, something along the lines of Beschämend. In Deutschland sprechen wir Deutsch. Shameful. In Germany we speak German. Loud enough they were supposed to hear, clearly looking for me to agree with her. To which I replied in my very broken German, ich bin English. Mein Deutsch ist sehr schlecht, or I'm English. My German is very bad. Her face went bright red. This happened to my brother and father while they were traveling. Some dude walks up to my brother, thinking he is a local, and starts talking to him in Farsi. When he realized my brother didn't understand, started saying really rude things about him and my dad being stupid. My dad, fluent in Farsi, comes over and rips this butthole a second one. The dude feigned being apologetic and made excuses for his attitude. As he was walking away, he started muttering more foul things about them, but in Turkish this time. Dad speaks Turkish as well, and proceeds to rip him a third butthole. TLDR. There is a man with 3 buttholes. I loved the TLDR. I was on a tour bus with my grandmother going to a luau in Hawaii. My grandmother spoke fluent Italian as both her parents were Italian immigrants. 2 young women behind us were speaking to each other in Italian, probably assuming none of the other tourists could understand them. My grandmother told me, I don't speak but a few words in Italian, that they were insulting everyone on the bus. She let it go on a while but just kept getting angrier and angrier as the ride went on. Finally she turned around and told them off, telling them they should be ashamed of themselves for being so rude. They looked so embarrassed and apologized to her profusely. Getting told off by a grandmother on a tour bus was not what they expected. Hearing girl here, I was looking for something in Target and asked an employee for help. She was busy stocking shelves and I kept trying to verbally get her attention. When she finally noticed me, she mouthed, "I'm deaf." I set my stuff down to free up my hands, introduced myself, and asked her where what I was looking for was in American Sign Language. Her face completely lit up, and I'll never forget it. Communication is major for deaf people because they are unfortunately often excluded from the hearing world, which is probably why this lady reacted the way she did. Though this was minor, it made a huge impact on me. This instance made me fall in love with sign language all over again and realize how communication is a basic human right that many people do not have or have limited access to. Was in Germany, and a middle school teacher asked me to come in as a guest for one of her English classes. The teacher introduced me. I said hello and that I was from the US, and happy to be in their class. The teacher said, "So do you have any questions in English for an American? What do you think an American is like?" One of the kids near the front says in German, kind of under his breath but definitely loud enough that most of the class can hear, "Fat and stupid." The kids laugh. The teacher turns bright red. I don't know what to do, so I just say of course, many Americans can speak German in German. The kid almost crap himself. He looked like a baby deer that had wandered on stage at a Beyonce concert. I thought he was just being a dong and had intended me to understand what he was saying. Apparently though he actually hadn't thought through that an American in Germany in their language class might actually speak their language. He looked like a baby deer that had wandered on stage at a Beyonce concert. That is an amazing description. I'm fluent in Spanish and was in a bank line in Lima, the capital of a South American city, and these two early middle-aged women were in front of me have a mostly quiet chat. One was telling the other about this new young guy at work she was banging and describing all the crazy lovemaking they were having, going into detail about all sorts of stuff. The other wanted to know what he looked like and she was kind of describing him badly, and she kinda did a sly look around the bank, waited a few seconds and said in Spanish, "He looks like this guy behind us, but with blonde hair. Much better looking and a much better dresser." She did a good job of not gesturing towards me when she said it, but it didn't stop me from hearing it. So she goes back to discussing details about hooking up with him at work and they don't notice the line has moved. And so without a warning throat clear I just say, "We all love the details back here but can you move forward?" She went white as a ghost and they didn't really talk for the rest of the wait. It was hilarious. The people at the Chinese food place on my campus spoke Chinese to the door exchange students. But even though I spoke Chinese I just always spoke English to them since I have an accent when I speak Chinese. But one day I got all meat no rice since I had a rice maker at home. And when I was paying the lady says to the person beside her fat butt wants meat no rice. And I responded in Chinese, "Actually I have rice at home." They didn't charge me for the order and started giving me a bit extra whenever I go there. Half my family is Chinese. Regardless, you mentioned an accent. My dad learned Mandarin by tape online video. The rest of my family hate his Chinese accent because he apparently picked up the equivalent of a hillbilly accent online. I went to a psychiatric emergency ward once and asked for help and if they were comfortable to speak English. I understand Danish but have a hard time making myself understandable in it and didn't really feel like an idiot at a crucial time of my life. I stayed there for 4 days without anyone realizing I knew what they were saying about me right in front of me. 2 of the nurses thought I was cute. 1 doctor thought I was lying all the time. A patient thought I was a spy for the staff. A lot happened in those 4 days. It made my stay way more enjoyable than it should have been. A lady on the bus was being a bee and slagging people off in Greek until she got to me. She was being excessively nasty about my chipped nail varnish. I don't know either, maybe she was having a bad day. As soon as I clocked it I turned around and looked her dead in the eye with my very Greek face and she stopped. She then sat in the seat in front of me where I sat and called my mom, also Greek, who I had a conversation with for the duration of the bus journey about the rude lady who slagged my nails off because she thought I couldn't understand. In Greek, it was delicious. We had a large family reunion dinner at a restaurant and we were all sharing stories. My funny uncle was telling us how he used to pretend he was deaf and his sister would translate. To prove it, he asked the waitress to get the manager. When he came over, my uncle started signing to him, with made up and exaggerated gestures. My aunt told him that the food was good and the server was excellent. All the while the manager just smiled and nodded. When they were done talking, the manager said in sign language, he spoke ASL and knew it was balls. We blew up laughing and my uncle's face turned beet red. As someone who is fluent in ASL, I don't know that I could have kept a straight face. Props to that manager. I was in a hotel elevator with my wife in Osaka, Japan. The Miyako Marriott to exact. It is a popular hotel for tourists. We were going up the elevator to our room on the 54th floor. It's a high hotel. In the elevator with us is a Chinese family that speaks Cantonese. They must have assumed we were Japanese or some other type of Asian because they started to tease their preteen daughter about how badly she need to take a crap. They were laughing and the mother was teasing her about how I can almost see it coming out. Our floor came first and when it did I turned to them and said goodnight in Cantonese. Their face was priceless and we got out of the elevator. My wife called me a jackass while laughing her butt off. Then we got back to our rooms and took a crap too. I used to live in an apartment building full of Chinese grad students and their families, and every day in the elevator was like this. By the time I moved out, I knew all kinds of juicy gossip. My girlfriend and I live in Ottawa, Canada. I grew up speaking French my whole life, and she knows enough to understand others speaking. We were in a restaurant, which was relatively empty except for us and another very French couple at a table nearby close enough to hear their conversation. Eventually the other girl started talking about my girlfriend's clothing, saying things like mauvaise choice, bad choice. I suspect they were visiting from Quebec and just didn't realize that most people here speak a bit of French. But as we were leaving, I turned to them and said bonjour, good day. The look on her face still pops into my head occasionally and it makes everything feel right in the world. Cable guy here. Being a white guy, most people don't realize that I know how to speak and write in Spanish. I run into so many situations where I can run under the radar and just do my job without someone knowing that I can understand them completely. Every once in a while I subtly let them know that I can understand them. I was doing an installation at a house where the family only spoke Spanish and the order requested for a Spanish speaking tech. I showed up to the door. The husband opened the door and automatically assumed that I couldn't speak Spanish. His English was near perfect and he greeted me, showed me around and where he wanted everything. He let me do my work as he walked into the other room where his buddy was and automatically started talking crap about me. I can't believe they sent a freaking white guy who can't speak Spanish. I specifically told them to send someone who can speak Spanish so I didn't have to deal with his balls. He's going to be lazy as frick and not do the job right. I bet the butthole is going to expect a tip after doing a crappy job and I'll have to fix it myself. The dude went on and on the entire time I was there, talking crap the entire time. At the end of the appointment, I was pee. I didn't show it, but he thought it was funny to talk crap in front of me. Smile on his face while acting like he wasn't saying anything about me. So I looked at him, told him in Spanish your installation is done. If you have any questions you can call the company yourself and they'll be able to get someone who speaks Spanish to help you. He looked at me with a shocked expression. So I continued, next time you should ask if the person can speak Spanish before talking crap. His buddy hit the floor laughing as I left the customer standing there feeling like a jackass. Fellow cable guy, never fails that I get the Spanish speaking tech requested jobs. We have no Spanish speaking techs here. Can follow along in Spanish for the most part, cannot speak it so well. When I was teaching kids in Japan, I would only respond with English only to their Japanese. I did this for a few reasons. 1. To make them think I didn't speak Japanese. 2. To make them use English more. 3. So I could scare the crap out of them once I decided to speak Japanese. Some kid in English school didn't do his homework. When I asked him for it, he told me in English that he forgot his book. He then turns to his classmate and says in Japanese that his book is in his bag and he didn't do his homework because he couldn't be bothered. I said nothing. Come the end of the class, his mother is waiting in the reception, along with my Japanese manager. So I tell the manager in English that he didn't do his homework. I hear the conversation between kid and mom, with him giving the same forgot bulls. So, I just say in perfect Japanese, why are you saying you forgot the book? When I asked you in the class, you told the other student that it's in your bag and you didn't do the homework because you couldn't be bothered. I'm sorry, didn't you know that I could understand Japanese? Mom opens the bag, finds the book, smacks the kid in the head with the book and tells him to sit in the reception doing his homework. Kid cries. All is good. Kid cries. All is good. Confirmed. Actual teacher. Source. I'm teacher. Nice story. I am 100% white and look very European and was traveling South Korea with my also very European looking Spanish friend, but we both speak conversational level Korean. As we were walking around a park in Daegu, fairly large city south of Seoul, a bunch of seniors in the park were talking about how pretty we were. We turned around and thanked them in Korean, and they were very taken aback and then asked us where we were from. After telling them, they said, if everyone is as pretty you too, I want to go there. Made our day as they were so sweet. Funny story, I went to an Asian dollar store in Jeju, South Korea. All my friends checked out first, but they were all East Asian looking. The cashiers dealt with them as normal. When I get to the till, the guy noticeably pales and then turns to his co-worker in panic. Dude, I don't speak English. What do I do? Co-worker, just deal with it. Guy, I don't speak English, but I can speak Chinese. Co-worker, you speak Chinese. I didn't know that. Guy, hey. Third person opposite the tills. Do you speak English? Help me. Guy 3. Dude, just deal with it. Me. It's okay. I speak Korean. The look on his face was hilarious. I also have a lot of stories of Koreans crap talking me, but weirdly enough most of them are from here in Canada. The cashier story made me delight laugh. Love the dude that was like, I don't speak English, but what about Chinese, like that's going to help. When I was stationed in Korea, I was getting a haircut and the hairdresser had like an assistant or a new person helping her get me seated and prepared. She says to the main girl, he looks like a baby. I have a baby face and was like 22 at the time. I responded in Korean with, I look like a baby? She was really startled and embarrassed and noped out of there for the rest of the haircut. The main hairdresser took advantage of being able to talk with me in Korean, though. I was in an elevator going back up to my apartment after working out some 2 years ago and I had a man bun at the time. There were 6 other guys in the elevator speaking Arabic, so I just listened as I usually do. Then, one of the guys goes, haha, look at this guy's hair. It's ridiculous. I turn around and respond, you want to say that again? The 5 other dudes proceed to die of laughter with one of them screaming, I knew you were Arab. I knew you were Arab. I ended up laughing alongside them to their one friend who felt super awkward. My family and I went to Sri Lanka for 2 weeks to see where my mom grew up and general beach stuff. For some reason we were like the only people in the hotel we were staying at aside from a wedding party that left a day after we got there. A few days and there was another family staying there, I believe from Suriname, and we were all chilling at the pool and decided to play a game of water polo against each other. Things got exciting and one of the daughters yelled out something in Dutch like, go for the big fat guy. My Dutch dad replied, what big fat guy? And everybody laughed. Just a simple story, but it was pretty sweet. Most of these stories are a bit negative. Here's a lighter one. My mum's a linguist and speaks about 15 languages fluently, and as such, I picked up a couple along the way. Most of my childhood was spent in Germany, so I have a firm grasp of the language, which doesn't really seem to match my appearance. I'm a 6'3", 220 pounds, black man, who speaks German. Now this isn't too uncommon a sight in Germany, but in North America, I'm a freaking unicorn. So I was standing at the bus stop one day in the heart of downtown Toronto and there were these 2 60-something-year-old German ladies who were not having a good time. They were trying to find the art gallery and were fed up with the fact that they were having such a crappy time navigating because their English-speaking children had left them alone for the day. I didn't have anything particularly important planned for that day, so I turned to them and said something to the effect of, you know, our city has a lot to offer if you know where to look. Would you two like me to show you where the gallery is? And a couple places you can get lunch along the way. They nearly fainted. They were so happy that they found someone who spoke German and couldn't stop taking pictures with me to show their family the guy that saved their day. I walked them to the gallery and gave them a bit of an impromptu walking bus tour along the way. That was the day I gained 2 omas. That was the day I gained 2 omas. The most valuable currency in the world right there. I once interviewed for a part-time school holiday job, together with a good friend of mine. My friend is Chinese, the majority race of the country I live in. I, however, am quite clearly not. The first thing the HR manager says when he sees me is, we need someone who speaks Mandarin, a criterion not stated anywhere in the employment ad, and which subtly translates to Chinese candidates preferred. My friend, while ethnically Chinese, speaks little to no Mandarin. I, on the other hand, speak it rather fluently. Probably as a test, the HR manager decides to field us questions in Mandarin, clearly intent on cutting me out of the interview. My friend turns pale as he stumbles along to answer the question posed in whatever halting Mandarin he can scrape together. The manager then turns to me, rather arrogantly, waiting for my reply. It gave me great joy to tell him straight to his face, thank you for the opportunity, but clearly I am not the right candidate you are looking for to fill this position since I am not Chinese in crisp fluent Mandarin. The look of bewilderment of his face was priceless. Confirmed Singapore, though we need people who speak Chinese, but really we just don't want Malays and Indians, is so aggravating. My family and I were flying to Greece from Houston to visit family, and 2 groups are also on this 10 hours flight. Student ambassador middle high schoolers, mostly girls, from the US, and a youth male Greek soccer team. And of course, they were all sitting by us with their chaperones at the other end of the plane. The boys are hitting on and flirting with these girls about 2-4 years younger than them, all over each other. They moved seats so they can sit with the girls, and they were so loud AMD obnoxious the whole plane was pee off, except the crew who did frick all about it apparently. The boys were also talking amongst themselves in Greek. My mother speaks fluently from years of Greek school and many a summer raised in the Peloponnese side. At some point, while all three of us are just sitting there reading, sleeping, trying to watch the tiny TV at the front of the plane and listen over this kid's constantly talking, my mother jumps up and goes over to the group and says, "These boys are calling you fat and stupid. They also think American girls are so easy. By the way she points at the one guy who was the most tall over this one girl, is 18. They have girlfriends waiting for them in the terminal. Now shut up so I can sleep." They all shuffled back to their appropriate seats, silent. Best flight ever after that. I love my mom. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.